We'll go ahead and get started. About 2 minutes to 9:30. My name's Bart Matthews. I'm the GIS Program Manager for the National Forest of North Carolina, and appreciate all of you attending my presentation this morning. Today we're going to cover this was a pretty big project that the Forest took under, updating all of our transportation system, so that includes our roads and trails. Okay, great. Appreciate it. So these are the topics that I'll be covering today. Just want to kind of give an overview of the National Forest in North Carolina, the schedule that we're working on. We're still working on this project. It's been going on for about 2 years now. Really, we're just focusing on our roads and trails data, and then want to touch base on kind of the products that are downstream from these kind of updates. We have other products, mapping products that utilize our transportation roads and trails data. And so it's kind of a ripple effect with those products as well that kind of get updated, and kind of the next steps that we're planning on doing over the coming new year here. For most of y'all may not know, but we actually do have 4 national forests here in North Carolina, extending always from the East Coast, the Atlantic here, all the way to the western part of the state to the Appalachians. We had the Croatan National Forest on the coast here. We got let's see, it's about 160,000 acres for the administrative boundary. There, you wouldn't think of beaches when you hear national forest, but there are a number of campgrounds and beach sites here along this forest. So definitely a very unique area. In the middle part of the state, we have the Iwari National Forest. This actually is one of the youngest national forests in the national forest system. In the 1960s, they acquired a number of acreage in this area, and it was in 1961, I believe, that Iwari became a national forest under President Kennedy. Then in the southwestern part of the state, this is our largest national forest, the Nantahala National Forest. This is kind of in the backyard here, the Pisgah and Nantahala. We have 3 ranger districts: the Nantahala Ranger District, the Tisquity, and the Chewa. This is about 500,000 acres of land that we manage for you here in the southwestern part of the state. It's supposed to be advancing. I didn't get to check this earlier, but yeah. Here we go. I left off the Pisgah, but with the Pisgah National Forest, we also have 3 ranger districts of that area. It's the Grandfather District, the Appalachian Ranger District. It's actually split in 2. We have a eastern side of the Appalachian District that kind of butts up against the Grandfather, and then on the western part of the state, bordering Tennessee, the Cherokee National Forest is the other section of the Appalachian Ranger District. So what I was showing earlier were kind of the administrative boundaries that we have with the National Forest System. We obviously do not own all of that land within the administrative boundary. So this is just showing the surface ownership is kind of how we characterize the land, the forest system lands with the National Forest. And so this is just showing a good depiction of the complexity of our road system, trails through here. So this project, we were only updating, obviously, just the forest system roads and trails that we maintain and operate. In some cases where we did go on and make some updates, these are typically like the Appalachian Trail, other trails that go through private and other state partner lands. we made the decision to pretty much, especially with those historical or national trails, that we were going to delineate the whole system that would go through our national forest. So in the beginning, we've been around a long time. We use traditional surveying methods for our road system and our trails. And this was pretty indicative of kind of the quality and accuracy of our data sets that we were dealing with and updating. And then early in the 1950s, the U.S. Department of Agriculture it still has a very robust aerial photography program, but flying all the agricultural and forest system lands. So this was also a big source that was used to delineate our road systems and our trails where obviously we could see them. But using the old analytical plotters, the old stereo glass plotters, a lot of what we had in our current database was created using these mapping methodologies back in the day. And then this is the typical product that was created. You know, your 1 to 24,000 K quad maps all basically our infrastructure with our trails, roads, any type of landscaping, landscape with swamps, rivers, and so forth. That information was collected using those methodologies. Then, back in 1999 to 2000, when the Department of Defense turned off the select availability with GPS, we were able to utilize GPS technology to improve the accuracy of our roads and trails. But you got to remember, this is staff that was just our resource specialists. These were really not true surveyors, so to speak. So we did find a lot of anomalies in the quality of these data sets that were collected by the staff out in the field. So this was kind of a team effort. We have 3 GIS GIS coordinators. We have Olive Waters over on the Uwharrie and the Croatan National Forest in the eastern part of the state, Amber Vanderwolf with the Pisgah National Forest, and Eric Pulliam with the Nantahala National Forest. Overall, these are the stats. We got about over 1,600 miles of 1,600 roads, totaling over 2,700 miles, 600 trails, over 2,000 miles. So and we touched every one of these routes. So this has been a pretty long project, as you can imagine. But in overall, with forests, we have over 1,200,000 acres of land that we manage here in North Carolina. Your land, excuse me. The overall schedule, we began back in February 2021. There's 2 different databases that the Forest Service maintains for our transportation. We have the GIS side of the house, where basically the core Centerline data for your GIS. And then we have the tabular side of the house with our natural resource management system. So we have 2 different databases that we're working with. And really the goal here was to get this one-to-one, because when you validate the existing GIS against our interim database, we have major errors of inconsistency in the accuracy and completeness of those 2 databases. So this past spring, we finally completed the trails, getting all the reviews done with we have 8 ranger districts here in North Carolina. So completing all those reviews and getting all of the tabular data updated and so forth. And we finished all of the road Centerline updates, and that we're currently finishing up those reviews right now with the forest, and hopefully we'll be done here at the end of the year with the reviews of those. So for us to enable this project, we worked with our state partner, the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, Department of Emergency Management. I coordinated with John Lay over there. I'm sure many of you have to access the state's LiDAR data. We ended up with about 29,000 tiles. That's a lot. I provided him 4 10 terabyte hard drives to get that delivery and to manage all that information. So with that, how all these tiles that were delivered to us, it's all based upon the counties, right? So we put together a script basically that would go through and read each of the county folders, pull out the tiles that fell within the administrative boundaries of our forest lands, would extract out all those tiles, and we would separate all that information out. But this is it's just a basic workflow that we went through using ArcPro, creating your LAS data set. This was the initial for the western part of the state was quality level 1 mapping that was done with the LiDAR. And this basically the UARI was kind of cut in half that had a quality level 2. And so a little coarser resolution with the LiDAR that was used there. But as we would go through, we'd separate out, basically creating your DEMs, merging those together, outputting those data sets, and creating the multi-directional hillshades. So I'm going to kind of go through those steps in here in a little more detail. Pretty straightforward. Just using your great LAS data set, computing all the statistics and everything with that was pretty important. We did a lot of different tests on the outputs of, what is going to be better, creating a TIFF DEM, Imagine DEM, and in the end, we did go with the Esri grid format and putting those into a FileG database. That was the most efficient way and processing time that we decided to go with. Just going through and selecting your ground points. The second phase that the state went through was classifying 16 counties here on the western part of the states, where they went through and classified, your buildings, your roads, waterways, low veg, medium veg, and high veg. But for this exercise, we just, just going with the ground classification was sufficient for what we were doing. I do want to add that on the western or eastern part of the state with Croatan, they provided also the break line information. So those are the hard breaks to give a better depiction, obviously around your lakes and streams and so forth. So we did pull that data in as well when we were generating those digital elevation models. When you're working with the DEM, you want the floating point size to that. As we would go through each one, just working with each county, what was really advantageous working with ArcPro, you're basically able to automatically, whatever type of raster analysis command that we were using, you basically kind of get like a snapshot, so to speak, of that next step that we were going through or process. So this allowed a lot of times to go through and just verify to make sure that we had all the number of tiles, the correct number of tiles, and the coverage was there. But a lot of times we would find, we missed 1 or 2. And, because when we were processing these, a lot of times it's 8, 12 hours to run a whole county. So we definitely wanted to make sure that you selected all the appropriate tiles when we were putting these together. This is just another, the side to give you a sense of the size that we're working with. This was the grandfather district and had a culmination of probably, I was working with over 6 to 8 different counties worth of data. So that's again, invaluable putting that script together earlier to pull out all the tiles, only the tiles that we needed for that particular boundary. And with the western part, we ended up going with the 1 foot resolution. This really made a big difference. We had originally, the regional office had created similar products for us that were 1 meter resolution, and we were finding that resolution was not. We were really having a hard time finding the trails out there on the ground. It obviously worked for roads, but when we took this to the 1 foot resolution, it made a huge difference being able to see the trail system out there on the national forest. Once we had our DEM, we created the multi-directional hill shades, and this next image here just kind of gives you a perspective. The one on the right is your traditional hill shades. That's what we were given initially for when we first started this project. And that the traditional hill shade is that default setting out of Esri. And with that, you get these, the shadows where obviously we could not see the trails. And when we switched over from ArcMap into ArcPro, we were able to utilize the multi-directional option, and that just made a world of difference. If you haven't used that type of hillshade output, highly recommended. The other products that we were using was Slope. This also really helped us, finding some of the trails that were in the shadow areas or areas of high cliffs or steep slopes. When we were using the slope data, this really helped us delineate the trail systems. Also utilizing the state's orthophotography program, the state flying the 6-inch high resolution imagery with leap off. This was definitely invaluable for our roads updates. We're able, like in this instance, being able to see where our gates are, and using both of this source data set along with the high resolution hill shades, we were definitely being able to update the accuracy of our Centerline data. So this is a good example of how bad our data was. I'll admit, we had in the red here is what our previous legacy road system, where we saw this a lot, to be honest, especially in the Pisgah and Nantahala National Forests, where we had roads up on the hillsides. Obviously, this one here on the left, we've lost signal or something with the GPS unit, and nobody ever went back to correct that data. And so we also have different levels of road systems. So it's goes from level 1 to level 5. So your 5's like your paved roads and so forth. Once we got down to your 4x4 type of road systems, that's where we were seeing most of our data, road center lines that were not accurate at all. So being able to have this data from the state has just made a huge difference in the accuracy now of our transportation system. Just another example on the Croatan, where you would think we would have had very accurate road data, but it was completely off. So it's just a good, even with GPS, I don't know why we had just nobody ever bothered probably to get this updated. So, but this was another example of using that for our roads. And if somebody ever downloaded our trail data years ago and used that on their GPS device, I mean, they would have gotten lost. And talking with the team about it, either somebody just kind of hand drew that on a quad map and called it good, or we're not really sure where that came from. But again, we ran across quite a few of these instances where the accuracy of the line work was just not there. But having this 1 foot resolution, especially with the switchbacks and so forth, I mean, we're right on it. It's pretty incredible being able to have that accuracy now with our trails out there. So we do work in SCE, Spatial Database Engine. With the 4 of us being kind of spread out across the state, we really didn't run into conflicts. We're working in the same areas. So, but obviously communication was key, who was working on what. So as we would go through, being able to check out all that data. In addition to, we had a subcontractor, Wild South, that prior to this project we had contracted out to do some work for us on using another source data called Strava, which is basically it's an app that's used for recreation, GPS, and for people that do hiking, ride mountain bikes, horseback riding. That data is all collected, and we were using that to help also improve some of our accuracy of our trails data. So we used a lot of what they had gone through and provided for the Pisgah National Forest. We were able to just trace a lot of their work, but obviously when we noticed when we would get in the switchbacks and other areas where we really wanted to get that accuracy, their data was not as good. So we took that extra time and effort to improve that accuracy, and it definitely helped expedite the Pisgah National Forest having the contractor did that prior work for us. As we went through, we were taking really some detailed notes, so that when we were meeting later with the districts and the resource specialists that knew those systems well, we pretty much were documenting everything that was done for each road, for each trail. A lot of times we would find that the routes it was routed the wrong direction. I mentioned earlier our tabular database. All of that, most of that data that's in the tables is all based upon mileposts. So we have our beginning milepost and our ending milepost, basically your length of that route. And so all that infrastructure, all the culverts, all your signs, all the bridges, you name it, is done by mileposts. Because this is kind of a legacy data. This is all pre-GPS. So we're working with historical databases that we still maintain and use for whatever reason. Obviously, we could do it differently now, but because that's how it is, we have to, that information is still used. And so we're not only updating this database, but we're having to do it again in another database. Definitely not very efficient. But we're getting so. Oh, get that point. Sorry, it jumped on me. When we first started the trails, we made a conscious decision not to work with the main corporate default database, because at that time we did not have a database steward to go in and do all the updates to the tabular data. That's a totally different department, totally different team that had to do those type of updates. So basically we just decided to make a copy of a static copy of our trails. And we went in going through that process. Basically we would go ahead and digitize the full trail. Once all that was done, then we would go back into the corporate database And we would then go to our basically deleting the existing, utilizing your make route, doing your starting off with your beginning mileposts, and they do basically would copy the whatever new trail that we had digitized into our default database. And after you would go through all of that, you got to again interpolate measures. So we would have to run that tool on any of the new trails to go through, so that because these polylines have that M value for measuring, so that we had the beginning and ending milepost. When we would then meet with the districts, as we would go through each route with the resource specialist, we were also collecting a lot of other information that we knew we're planning on working on after this project. Our gate locations, they had the best knowledge of where those were actually located. If we had any that were missing out of the database, any other, the biggest thing for us, because this was just a GIS exercise that we were doing, where we were going in and compiling what we felt was where the beginning and ending of the trail would be, or a road would be. But really it was the resource specialists that are out there every day driving these roads or walking these trails. They know where the beginning and ending. So this was really invaluable to ensure that we got the accuracy of these of the trail and roads where they really are out there on the landscape. So these are our 4 main products that pull our trails and roads data. Our motor vehicle use maps, that's our legal map representation, so that this is the map that is used. As you can download it to your device. Avenza, there's PDFs out there of all of our motor vehicle use maps. That provides, is that a 4x4 road? Is that just a regular dirt road? Is that a paved road, and so forth? And when I mentioned earlier with the NRM, the tabular data, again, that's a linear event of that route. And so that's where the beginning mileposts and the ending mileposts, having that new length and these new calculations, they have to go in and update all of that information as well. So that's that ripple effect I'm talking about, where because all of that is tabular, we're having to go back and update those new mileposts, where a paved road turns to a dirt road, that dirt road changes over to a 4x4 road, as an example. Then we have your Forrest visitor maps. That's the hard copy maps that we sell out of our district offices or other online stores that you can order from. They're typically 1 to 100,000 scale, so a little coarser, but that has all of our map, all of the trails, all the roads, campsites, any of the recreational opportunities that we have on your forest. Your quad maps, your 7.5 minute series quad maps, everybody thinks USGS makes those maps. Well, we have an agreement actually with USGS that the quads that fall on U.S. Forest Service lands across the entire country, the U.S. Forest Service actually is the steward of getting these maps updated. So with the work that we've done here in North Carolina for your forest, updating all the roads and trails, the new digital maps that come out with our quad maps, they've already been updated, showing the new Centerline and road work that we've done. The last product that we have, this is our Forest Interactive Visitor Map. This typically you could only access through your computer and so forth, but we do have an app now that you can load onto your mobile device. I just want to warn you though, when you come over here and look around the Pisgah National Forest, you're going to see icons with a bunch of seashells for beachcombing activity. There's no beach here. There's no ocean. So um, that's that next phase of work that we have to do. And it's, again, this is in a third database. So now we got three databases we're dealing with, and that's through the public affairs office. So now we're coordinating with them to go back in and work with them to change these icons and so forth to get them. You know, it should be a trailhead, not a seashell kind of thing. So also then we're contacting all the major map providers out there, Google Maps, Bing, Waze, because they also pull in our data and use on their own applications. So we want to make sure, you know, make them aware. They go to our national data clearinghouse that they're pulling in for North Carolina. They're getting the latest and greatest of our roads and trail systems. Nobody's used OpenStreetMap. Highly recommend them. They really do a good job. They got some really I like how they have all the trails within their app. So our next steps, we have a lot of old decommissioned routes, basically the old logging roads. A good example is Yancey County Emergency Management that contacted us. They have a lot of people that get lost in that particular area. And so what we did, we basically went through and mapped all the old logging roads, because that's what a lot of these are unauthorized new trails that people have created on their own that we do not maintain. And that's typically where people are getting lost because there's no signs. They lose their sense of direction where they're at. And so we put that data set together for the emergency response team, and it's already paid off big time in helping them find people that have gotten lost. Unauthorized trails, we're also working with our trail partners where we've identified areas where, yes, this makes sense, you know, to bring in a new trail system onto our system. So working with those partners, but also identifying areas where we do have a lot of unauthorized trails out there that are severely, you know, damaging that local ecosystem. So there's things that we're going through to that we'll be working on in the future. Obviously, then also updating all of our culverts and bridges with the new line work. That's going to be a huge undertaking. We have probably close to 30,000 different assets along all of our routes that we're going to have to update. Here's our national clearinghouse for all national forest data, GIS data. We also, there's web mapping services, so you can just connect up to the server and just pull in the data that way, or you can download. There's a file geodatabase format. I can't believe we still have shape files up there, but you can get a shape file if you want it. You should. Don't be using shape files anymore, okay? And then this is our website for the National Forest of North Carolina. This is the icon that you would look for on the Apple Store or Samsung's App Store, and it's called Visitor Map. And this is something new that they just came out not too recently, having this up there. Give us a couple months, and you'll see we'll be making changes so you don't go out there trying to look for seashells or anything here on the Pisgah. So with that, any questions for me? No? All right, thank you.